Hey everyone, and welcome back to Code and Context with MR. I'm your host Mahesh Rangi, and this is a podcast where we get into the real talk about the tech industry. We are here to pull back the curtain on the lessons and insights that shape our world. So, if you haven't listened to our previous podcast, you should definitely check them out. So, today I want to talk about something that's been on my mind a lot lately, and I'm just going to throw it out there. Are junior developers today being held back because things have gotten too easy? I know it sounds a bit harsh, but hear me out. Think back to a few years ago. If you wanted to integrate two systems, you had to dive deep into the protocol and data formats, and you had to get your hands dirty writing a ton of code just to get them talk. But now you have got tools like Salesforce, Power Platform, and MuleSoft, not to mention all the AI code generators. A lot of what used to require a ton of deep foundational knowledge is now just dragged up and done. On the surface, that's amazing. We are solving problem way faster than before. But here's the catch. We might be losing the art of deep thinking. For a junior developer, it's a trap. You can build these amazing workflows and automation, even full apps, without ever really having to understand how the system underneath actually works. Let me give you a perfect example from a past project. A junior dev, I was working with a built really cool workflow in Salesforce using Flow Builder. It's automated assignment in minutes and it looked great on our dev environment. But as soon as we rolled it out to a larger group, everything started falling apart. Records were getting locked, flows were timing out, and the performance was just terrible. The developer did everything right on the surface, but they had never learned about the governance limit or transaction boundaries that are part of the Salesforce platform. Without that underlying architectural thinking, the solution just didn't hold up. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm against these tools. They're incredibly powerful. Salesforce lets you spin our business app without a single line of code. With Power Platform, you can automate entire workflow just by dragging and dropping. And of course, AI can give you a working piece of code in matter of seconds. It's brilliant, it's fast, and it's totally changing how we work. But there's a flip side to all this speed, and it can be a little dangerous. Think of it like this. It kind of like learning to cook by only using microwave. You will get something to eat, sure, but you will miss the why and you won't learn the fundamentals, the techniques, the flavor and the timing. And I have seen this play out in the real world. I once saw a developer build a really sleek Drupal site using only modules and plugins. For the demo, it was perfect. The content was flowing, the forms worked, and everything seems to be running smoothly. But the moment it hit production and traffic spiked, the site just crawled. Pages were timing out, the cache wasn't working as they expected, and they had no idea how to fix it. The reason they never had to think about how Drupal handled database queries or what a proper scaling strategy looks like. And they just stacked module on top of each other until it looked right. That is the gap I want to talk about today, and we are solving problem faster than ever, but sometimes we are doing it without truly understanding how things work under the hood. Now look, I'm not saying we should go back to the Stone Age, and but when I starting out, if you wanted to build an integration, you really had to roll up your sleeves. You needed to understand both the source and target system, figure out how the API worked, handle authentication, deal with rate limit, build in retries, and of course write proper error handling and notification. It wasn't always fun, but you know what? You learn how things actually work behind the scenes. So, fast forward to today, so much of that is hidden away by tools. You drag, drop, click a few buttons, and boom, the integration is alive. And that is awesome for speed. But again, like, here's the catch. When Junior Dev only configured these pre-made blocks, They're not really designing a solution. They're just assembling them. I have seen this happen. Someone set up a no-code connector and it runs fine for a small data set. But once the real production load hits, everything breaks and they don't even know where to start debugging because they never had to think about things like retries, queues, or API limits. So what are we actually losing in all this? I think we are losing system thinking, that fundamental ability to see how all the parts of a solution fit together. We are losing problem framing, the skill of knowing what question to ask before we even write a line of code. We are losing our debugging intuition, that gut feeling for where things might break. We are losing an understanding of design patterns, and we are losing the skills of trade-off evaluation. Like knowing when a low-code solution is the right choice and where is the time to write custom code. And here's the scary part: a lot of people don't even realize they're missing this skill until something exploded. Let me give you another real example. I saw a case where someone built an integration in MuleSoft to connect two systems. It looked perfect in testing and everything worked just fine. But it went live, the payload turned out to be 10 times heavier than expected because they never checked what data the connector was actually pulling. Suddenly, the message queue was bloated, the system slowed to crawl, and everyone was scrambling to figure it out why. Was that MuleSoft fault? Absolutely not. The tool did exactly what it was told. It was a design thinking gap. The person building it hadn't thought about scale, payload size, or the downstream impact of their solution. And that's the real danger. These invisible gaps never show up in the demo. They only show up when you are live in production. So what do we actually do about this? Because I don't want this to sound all doom and gloom. These tools are incredible, but they're only as good as the person using them. Here's a few things that have really helped me over these years, and they might help you too. Whether you are just starting out, you are leading a team, or even if you are switching career into tech. Firstly, pair your configuration work with a design review. Don't just ask what someone built, ask why they built in that way. Every time you're working on a new workflow or automation, have a quick conversation. Why this approach? What other options did you consider? That simple habit builds solution thinking. I have seen this in action. I was helping colleague build a Power Automate flow for invoice approval. It was working perfectly in the sandbox, but I asked, what happened if two invoices come in at the exact same time? We quickly realized the flow would fail and create duplicate approvals. We took a few minutes to redesign it with some simple error handling, and it worked flawlessly. That small post to think about the edge case made all the difference. And secondly, reverse engineer your tool. If you build something using Power Automated or Salesforce, try recreating its code. Write the API call, handle the authentication, and add the retries. You will suddenly see all the things the tool is quickly doing for you, and that's where the real learning happens. And thirdly, document your decision logic. For every config or flow you create, add a note that explains here's why we choose that approach. It sounds simple, but it forces deeper reflection. I can't tell you how many times I've gone back to an old automation and thought, what were we thinking here? And finally, simulate failure. Don't just test happy path, break your own flows on purpose, push bad data into them, overload them, and kill the connection. You will learn way more from something like watching fail than from watching it run smoothly in demo. I used to do this with Salesforce integration, literally pull the plug on a sandbox connection just to see where it would blow up. It was painful, but it made me 10 times more confident in production. So the bottom line is this: treat these tools as a learning layer, not just a shortcut. Use them to deliver faster, absolutely, but don't let them rob you of the chance to really understand how system works. So if you're a junior developer tuning in, I have few pieces of advice and I really want to share with you. First, don't just ask how do I make this work. Instead ask what could break this, and think about the edge cases, the failure, and what is the real world usage might look like. And when an AI write code for you, don't just copy and paste it. Read it like you wrote it, understand every single line, and then try to rewrite it your own way. That's how you really make it yours. Here's a trick I use myself. Try building the same solution in two different ways, one with the low code tool and one with the actual code. Then compare them. Look at the performance, the scalability, and the readability. I guarantee you will learn more in an afternoon doing that than in week of just following tutorials. And above all, never forget the why behind the what. That's what separates someone who just make things work from someone who actually designs solutions. Because at the end of the day, you're not just config engineer, you are a problem solver, a designer. And if you keep practicing this mindset, you are on your way to become a future solution designer and or architect. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a couple of quick habits that can make a huge difference, especially in if you are a junior dev or just getting into IT. First, always ask why before you make a change in system or build a workflow. Don't just make it work. Understand why it's been done this way. That simple 30-second force can save hours of headache later. And secondly, sketch a quick diagram of how your workflow or integration moves data. It doesn't need to be fancy at all, just a simple box and arrow diagram. This forces you to think about the connections between your system and where things might break. And thirdly, take a minute to write down the cases, just one or two sentences. That tiny habit train your mind to anticipate failure point before they hit production. Now let's take a quick look at the bigger picture. AI, low code, and self-service tools are only going to get smarter. The world of development is shifting, and tomorrow it won't be enough to just build feature. The real skill will be thinking like an architect or like problem solver. You will need to design system, weigh trade-offs, and make decisions that actually scales. And the good news is, if you start practicing these small habits now, you are already preparing yourself to thrive in the future. Turning automation and AI into tools that empower you instead of tools that just do all the thinking for you. Alright, to wrap things up today, the tools are getting smarter, AI is faster, Salesforce platform are everywhere, but that doesn't mean we stop thinking. If anything, now's the time to think even more deeply. Here's the reality: if we skip this step, we end up spending more time firefighting in production, more time retesting, more time redeploying, and more time dealing with the business impact of go live delays. And it doesn't stop there. In the future, someone will always have to guide these developers instead of them being truly empowered to make their own decisions. These tools can only take you so far. Your really advantage comes from your wisdom and your design sense and your understanding of how systems work in the real world. So next week we are flipping the script. We are going to talk about how to fairly measure productivity when AI is part of the process. Trust me, that one's gonna be spicy, so don't miss it. Until then, stay curious, dig a little deeper, and never stop solving.